and pardon me, got a bit of a frog in my throat. I thought I'd just talk you through a video actually, because some of these things, they seem to be a mystery. I mean, here's one which might be of some interest. So I'm going to point. You're going to see a computer screen because I can't. The reason I'm so late coming on is I've been trying to get OBS to do this and it won't do it. So I'll actually point the camera at the screen and you can see what I'm doing. So this one is, it says heat pump reality check, which is useful. And what it is a follow-up to one I did a while ago. And I'll just sort of take you to it. There you go. And I'll actually, can we make that full screen? Yes, we can. Right. That's a lovely picture of me. Look at that, eh? Looks, I tell you, it looks better on the phone than it does on the thing, but then it is only a thumbnail. What it basically is, well, I just talk about heat pumps because it's that time of year. And what we need to do is say what one is. Well, if you look there, boom, 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 that is a split air conditioner, and that is the what you would call the doings bit. This is the bit that does the interesting work. And if you look, and then that's a motorbike, but that's another story. And what I'm doing there is I'm trying to tell you about what's what. Well, quite honestly, it's a good video, and it's all true. And what it was back in 2016, as you can see here, we had some work done on our house. We had an extension put on, so our house went from being basically flat. There was the outside wall, and you can see it's got a bit added to it. And now we've got scaffolding, which was fun. Never thought I'd see my house with scaffolding. And then we got all the front done, which is lovely. And you can see on there, there's so it sort of sticks out a bit, which is fine. And this is what we had in our bedroom, because this is our bedroom. If you look out of our bedroom, we've got a nice view over the fields and stuff. But we just had one of these fitted, which was 319 quid. A lot of money. And I've never ever used it. I'll tell you for why. Because you see that thing that you got a springy thing there, and you've got a pipe, and you got a pipe there. So this is some sort of valve. What that does, in combination with that, is it selects whether the water goes around the radiators or around the tank, and it does all sorts of things like that. But it's basically a very simple valve. Not a lot involved in it at all, and it's gone wrong. So we've got a perfectly good boiler, which is well within safety standards at this point. We've got a perfectly good boiler, it's well within safety standards, and everything's great. So we ended up getting one of these in our house because we were having an extension, and we didn't have, having just paid for the extension, we didn't have the money to pay to get, we didn't have the money to pay to get anything. Oh, we got some viewers. Hello. We've got Alex Star 5887, and it says hi, hello. I've got Hostin Travasili says hi to you both. I'll wave because yeah, it's good to see you. I'm just talking about heat pumps. In the UK, as you may be aware, it's cold, and this is what we bought. And we bought these as a method of air conditioning. But what we've done now is because that's how much it was for a boiler. Can you imagine that much? £2,000 for a boiler. So for that money, or we could have gone for something like that, which £15,000, £11,000 But what we actually did, we went for 2 split air conditioners originally, and they run. Now this is the thing. I'm not just going to show it. I'm going to actually say it here. Hi. The thing about air conditioners is they work on heat pumps, and a heat pump means that you take the heat out of the air. So all you've got to do is pump it into the other thing. Now, how does that work as a cooler? If you think about your fridge, you've got a heat pump in it, and the heat of the things you put in the fridge is taken out and pumped out the back. That's why you've got the warm bit in the back. And if you reverse that, which you can do with a valve, you can take the heat from the room and warm up the fridge with it. You can do it very warm. It's quite possible. It's not done very often, not with fridges anyway, because it's slightly. But with air conditioners, it is. And the thing is, got an itch, sorry, about an air conditioner is that it will give you 3 kilowatts of heat for 1 kilowatt of electrical power used. Well, that's what our one does anyway. I'll put it back onto there. And yeah, 3 kilowatts is quite a lot. And what we do is we literally run, because our gas bill, with the Ukraine war, everything doubled, tripled. It got ridiculous. So that's why I did this thing. But what we've done now is we've had extra units fitted. So we've got units out the back and out the front. So each room's got its own unit. And yeah, we've actually taken out the gas cooker, put in an electric cooker, and saved ourselves £13 a month just by not having the gas connected. And I think they're neat. They do the job, and they save us so much money. And the beauty of this is because they're basically a fan heater. So this is the new ones we got. Just show you. Right, we got those. We got these media ones. They are very good because they're inverter ones. The others were as well. But as you see, that's nice and neat at the back. And that's where we had the boiler taken out, which was perfectly good and could have been. We actually got £12 back for that. And so that's the hole that was left, and that's now been all patched up. You can see there. So out the back now we've got very neat, and at the front we've got very neat, and boom, everything's sorted. That's been for a year like that. There we go. You can see it nice and clear. So that's where the boiler was there. That's where that hole was. And now we have a nice clear space to put stuff, which we have done. Put a picture of the hole. Yeah. Anyway, that was a theory, but I thought I'd just mention it because if you've got is that somebody new? Yes, we've got another new. Leon 1974. Hello. How you doing? Yeah, the reason I mention it because obviously there was snow last week, and it's all rather sort of expensive to run and things, and the amount of people. Now, this is something that I found to be quite irritating in a silly way. People think that running air conditioning is expensive, which I suppose, considering you don't have to have air conditioning on in the summer, you could just sweat. It can be expensive, and a lot of people don't realise you can't have the windows open when you've got the air conditioning on because you're trying to air condition the entire planet with your little unit, which means it'll be running flat out. But if you've got a unit like that running on heat, and I'll use heat as an example, you set it for 20 degrees C, which in the winter is quite a nice temperature. It blows until it gets to, with the modern one, it blows until it gets to 20 degrees C, and then it'll keep on blowing, but it will shut the fan down quite a lot, and it'll stop doing the heat bit, and it will just circulate the air. So you've got about a 2 degree swing. So it goes sort of, if you set it for 20, it goes to 21 or 19. So normally if you set it for 21, it'll go 20 to 22, which is a nice temperature to sit in. And it will do that within minutes of being switched on, which is pretty good. It will bring up the room temperature probably in, well, it's a 3 kilowatt heater effectively. So it'll bring up the room temperature in an average size room that we've got in about 15 minutes. So in 15 minutes, you've gone from being freezing cold to being comfortable. Oh, sorry, Leon. Nice to have seen you. Hopefully we'll see you again sometime. And everybody else who's here, thanks for coming in. Oh, by the way, you may have noticed that I've done you can now get memberships, and I'm going to be doing special stuff for members, so you might like to find that useful. Don't forget you can subscribe, and it doesn't cost anything to subscribe, and you can also just go and watch the videos and see if you like any of them, and if you do, say so. Put comments, it's all good. Anyway, back to the story. Yeah, it takes about 15 minutes to warm up our kitchen, which is big, and you're comfortable almost immediately. But then once it's actually ticking, it's running probably, instead of 1 kilowatt an hour, which is 25p in the UK on the rate I'm on, it's now ticking, and it's only on for about 30% of the time. So you come from, if it was 30 pence, you've now gone to 10 pence an hour, which is very cheap for your heating. If you can do that any other way, I mean, you could do it with a real fan heater, and it'll cost you £1 an hour to run, or 75 pence. Yeah, 75 pence to run for an hour. I think it's probably worth doing it with these things. Anyway, that's what I was just going to talk about on there. So maybe that's of some interest to you. Maybe it's not. On my channel, let me just bring up the channel list. I was going to put this onto OBS and be able to sort of bring up things and run them and whatever. But we tried setting up OBS. I have. It's not easy. This one's quite a good one. This one's all about recording levels. Now, this is something that people really get confused about, and I thought I'd talk about this one, because what you get with recording levels is distortion. And there's me doing my thing. Almost looks like me, doesn't it, eh? But yeah, this video took a long time to make, and I just thought I'd explain it because people don't understand necessarily about recording levels. Did you know, for instance, that a digital recorder like OBS will actually, or not OBS, Audacity, will record up to the 1 dB mark. Anything over that, it's a hard clip. Boom, gone. Signal's gone. So anything you put up over that will just be cut off on the top. So instead of having a nice sine wave, which is all sort of, siney wavy, you'll end up with something that looks like, well, square waves. And that means you're going to have problems. So what I thought I'd just mention here, that's what happens when you overdrive signals. And that is not a good thing. You see, this is with Audacity, when you're clipping, it gives you red. So you can see how much that's clipping. But that was from something that was playing that was very good, actually. If we go back to here, that's there. It's just the quiet bits of the music were nicely, nicely within the level. That was a drum crash, so boom, got red. And then you can see here there's a tick 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 sort of sounds. And yeah, you can hear all these if you play the video, of course. And there's me again, but I'm sure you knew that. And then, wow, this is what it does. And it's not good. None of this is good. Except, and this is why. Now, this is a bit that people don't understand. This is a pure tone. It's a 16.14 hertz. 1614 hertz. So it's meant to be a nice signal. And then you get this problem. That signal, see this here, where it's all being chopped, the top, as I say, clean. That gives you this signal here, which is much the same as the original. So that's your fundamental, which is your around here. And then you got this lot here, look, all follow the mouse all the way down. And then you get this, and 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 this. And this. Look how wide it is. It's going up to 9K, which was originally, if you look at the original, it only went up to 1,000. Only went up to there. So it's really it's what, if you were a radio amateur, you'd refer to it as it's been splattering. And it's nasty. Look, and there's another one there where going for triangle waves, it's even worse. And look, now this one's where the wave has been modified slightly, and this has gone. So we're peaking over 0 dB, and look at here, 1, 2, 3. That's again wide, much wider than it should be. And this is what happens if you do that to it. This is soft overdrive, looks like. So this is where it's been, instead of clipping, it's been sort of cropped softly. So, oh yeah, you shouldn't go that high and come back down again. But look what it's done to this. That's the same level signal, just over the 0 dB. But look what it's done here. Look, you've got all of this right the way up to there. All of that, and that is high level. That's minus 54 dB when you consider that's there. So this is definitely not a good sound to hear in comparison to what it should be. Now, where people get confused is, now this is an interesting one, you should hear this. Just to explain, these are tones. There's a tone and there's a bit of music. There's the same tone, very much louder, and a bit of music. There's the same tone again, bit of music. Same tone again, bit of music. Now they're all the same tone, but they've been modified in the same way that that first one was. Don't mean made to sound awkward, but what's important here is the modification that's done here. This is full clipping. The music was on there when it was modified. So what's been done to that tone has been done to that music. What's been done to that tone has been done to that music, etc., etc. And when you play that back, which is worth playing back that video, you'll hear how the music can sound quite good. But when you hear the pure tones, you see here, you can see they're playing. When you hear the pure tones, you think, well, hang on, if that's what the tone sounds like, what does the actual music sound like? Because obviously, you want the music to sound pure, and it doesn't allow it. And this is now got all upset. So that video is well worth a watch and a listen. And if you follow the advice, you can get yourself some good results. The other thing is, what I will point out to you here, is that anybody else? Oh look, we've got Milch WR15W says hi, hello Milch, welcome. Just talking my way through this video, which went all funny. I've got an ad blocker on here, shouldn't say that, should I? But when you get up to here, you can then see, that's, yeah. So up here, you can actually see the tones and hear them and see what they're going to be like. Oh no, obviously got a bit of a talky bit at the end. It's a good video. It took a while to make. It'd be nice if people watched it. Hasn't had very many views, but it hasn't been out that often, that long. And if you do go onto my channels and watch my videos and have a question, more than happy to come back and give you an answer. Sometimes the answer may be, I don't know. I'm not an AI, you see, so sometimes I don't know things. But if I do know it, I'll point you in the right direction. And if I don't know it, I'll try and point you in the right direction. And as you can see, somebody's come up there with a question and I've given them an answer. And yeah, it's good. I do enjoy the question and answer bit. And I did think I will do a question and answer. What have we got in here? Nothing interesting. Don't know why half of them are on there. Anyway, yeah, so what I'm saying is more than happy to um, make it a community. Yeah, had an interesting discussion. I've been in the business of repairing stuff for many, many years. I left school 16, got a job in electronics by 17, and basically stayed in electronics until I retired. Did do a bit of bus driving in between time, sort of trying to pay the mortgage on a couple of things. So that's due to life rather than intention, but I still kept on doing the repairs. I've run my own shop. I actually owned my own shop, repair shop, video library, and various other things like that. Worked for a broadcast TV company and worked for a company that services the UK audiovisual stuff for the Army and Navy and Air Force. And so, yeah, had a lot of interesting stuff there. Dealing with things that were, they were old when I got to them, but they were very interesting to work on. EIAJ, if you know what one of those is, EIAJ video recorder, reel-to-reel video recorders, and various cassette mechanisms that were not VHS or Betamax or Philips, although they did do some Philips. A little word of advice: if anybody offers you a Philips video recorder and says it only needs something doing to it, unless you really want to give yourself a pain in the backside, don't take it, because they are troublesome. They don't. We used to repair them, and they used to go out and then come back sort of like the following 3 days later. Totally different fault. And then we used to start trying to make them be a bit more reliable. They used to go out and come back 5 days later. So they never were. The VHSs were great. We had the odd Betamax, and the EIAJ stuff was great. And there was some EIAJ based cassettes that were used. They're more like 8-track cartridges really than cassettes. So they were a big thing that you actually put on, and it pulled it out and did the threading like the reel-to-reel was. They were always interesting. Playing with pneumatics, that was good. Standard pneumatics and high band pneumatics. Of course, if you're into this, you know that pneumatics were used by people like the TV companies. High band was actually broadcast quality, and standard was almost broadcast quality. So small TV stations might have used it. They also used it for news gathering and stuff. That was all good fun. I was repairing an army video recorder, an EIAJ one, where they had actually been ambushed. And what they'd done was, because they were carrying this video equipment, which was an old tubed camera, none of this CCD stuff. It was a big thing. It used to weigh a lot of weight. The camera was monochrome. It was only a black and white recorder, but they got ambushed, and the only thing they could think to do was to dump the equipment so that the enemy, if you like, didn't get it, and they dumped it in a canal. But they wanted what was on it, and they also had to account for the fact that they didn't have this recorder when they got back to their barracks and things. So after they managed to get away and sort out the ambush problem, probably, they went back and hooked it out of the canal, and then they sent it to us to be repaired. And yeah, I can't remember. I think the video recorder, it was pretty far gone. I can't remember if I got that one going, but I know I actually got the tape going. I had to roll. It was reel-to-reel, so it was all right. But I had to unroll it, clean it, and play it. And yeah, it was quite interesting because they actually had the thing was rolling. Literally, it was recording when they threw it into the canal, and so you sort it. saw it go in. I think the camera hit the water first. It was fun. Always was interesting. We used to do silly things like beaming. Um, we had they were domestic video recorders, but if you plugged an aerial into the aerial out of a domestic video recorder, you could send what you were watching across to another video recorder, which could or TV, which could then see it if they had an aerial plugged in and pointed their aerial at your aerial. Basic TV transmissions. We actually found that we could do it from one workshop to another because we had two workshops. That was fun. Um, yeah, that was all good stuff. Anyway, my experience is quite large in terms of equipment. Also dealt with computer peripherals. I mean, you probably not many people would know about them, but there used to be things called paper tape readers, and I worked for a company which was in the UK a leader in making these things, and they made one of the fastest ones available. Um, that was fun. That was 1970 something. The paper used to go through there like a dose of salts. Gone. And they used to do at that time dot matrix printers, and they did one of the fastest dot matrix printers in the world at the time. Um, my dad used to work for a computer company, and I went and saw. That was interesting. Went and saw a computer room, one of the old mainframe computer rooms when it was state of the art. It was one of these rooms that was big, it was huge. There was this computer in it, well, several computers, and they had, when you see it on these sci-fi films where they got the spools of tape and they're running backwards and forwards. It's one of those sort of computers, and they were doing a download, a sort of a print download, and they had what was called a line printer. Now, it was a different meaning of the word line. This thing printed a whole line in one go, boom, and well, that's what I was told anyway. And the effect was that it used to shoot the paper out. It was so quick because it was being fed by whatever, and it was for banks and things. But it used to shoot the paper out about 2.5 foot, 3 foot above the printer, where it was caught by a sort of like a hood, and that deflected it down into the paper hod, the used paper hod, as in where it's going to, because this thing went bzzz, and the paper literally shot out. Down. If you took the hood off, I don't know how far it goes, but it was amazing to watch. Yeah, it was like something that you've seen in these films where they're looking around the NASA computer center and things. It was one of those sort of things. Very, very expensive at the time. I can remember my dad being pleased because he actually had access to the mainframe, and they actually gave him a whole megabyte to be able to use for his projects for the company. A whole megabyte, and that was considered a lot. Then, of course, computers didn't use so much in the old days. They were more, what would you call them? Memory friendly. They didn't have all the pretty bits. They just did the coding. What other experience have I had? Oh yes, well, prompting in TV studios, closed circuit television, RF modulation, all that sort of thing. Dealing with transmission cables. For instance, we had transmission cables. We could have used thin stuff like what you get for your TV aerial in the old days, which is about what thickness of your little finger. Mine are a bit like sausages, but we're talking about cable that was that diameter. But we couldn't use that because TV cameras in those days were huge, were heavy, and they were on a thing called a Vinton. Vinton were the people who made them, and it was a pedestal. And it had wheels. A beautiful piece of engineering. You push this thing, it just glide if you turn the brakes up. Just glide, and it had the ability to raise the camera up and to bring it down and to swing around, and it was beautiful. And it's what they used in all the TV studios. So if I had my OBS working, I'd go and find a picture of one, but I can't. But the trouble with those was if we had thin cables running between us, which was what we were using for the script, and the front of the camera where the display was, which was basically a 12-inch TV bolted to the front of the camera. If we didn't have thick cables, the thin cables would get run over and they would just cut through them. So what we used to do, we used to run broadcast transmission lines, which were back diameter, if you can sort of scale that. So what's that? The size of my eye socket. Yes, really thick cables, very very expensive. But when the Finton pedestal tried to run over it, it didn't. It would either stop the pedestal, in which case you need to pull it out of the way, or it would shuffle along with it, which was good fun. So it's all right. So we've got a couple more people popped in. Bernie McNichols, hi. Thank you very much for dropping in. Just talking about experiences in the broadcast industry and other things. You may remember, I mean, I've also licensed amateur. I used to be in a thing called Raynet. Now, if you're talking about UK, they have various things, and there's probably international versions of it. But in the UK, there's a radio amateurs, and they try and be helpful and try and give themselves something to do that's a little bit more, well, less mundane than just picking up a radio and talk to somebody saying hello. What the equivalent of CB, if you like. CB is not. Well, I started on CB, but went for the proper certified. There is actually in this country there's CB helpers who are trying to be helpful with CB, and there's also at Radio House. Now the thing about CB is if you're into CB, you know it's got a range of about 2 or 3 miles, and the areas are big because it's 27 megahertz. When you're talking about radio amateurs, you're talking about long wave, medium wave, short wave. Yeah. No, that sounds like the transmission stuff. But actually, you are talking about 2 meters, 6 meters, 10 meters, various other sizes. But it does mean that you've got the variety of transmissions, and you can work with sunspots and things. And when there's a disaster, the one that's in my mind is Lockerbie, which was a long time ago. If you're young, you have to look it up. But basically, it was when they put a bomb in a jumbo jet, and as it was flying over Scotland, the bomb went off, the aeroplane fell out of the sky, and it killed everybody on the plane and a lot of people on the ground. There was several people on the ground because it hit the town. It went splat. There was things all over. There was the cockpit ended up in a field with sort of drag marks and things. There were the passengers were scattered, shall we say, and some of them were found up trees, and some of them weren't all in one piece. But we don't need to go into too great details. But anyway, they had a problem with this, and this was because it was obviously a multi-agency emergency. So they sent ambulance, police, fire to Lockerbie, and they had the problem that they couldn't actually talk. The fire brigade couldn't talk to the police on their radios, neither could the ambulance, and so they had a problem that, well, how do you get around this problem? Because we got a lot of people up here and they're trying to talk to each other. So they called in Raynet, and what Raynet did was they put up relays, they put somebody with each group of people that was working, and so the police could talk to the police, ambulance could talk to ambulance, fire could talk to fire, but the Raynet could talk to any of the Raynet operators. So all the police, all the fire, all the ambulance had a Raynet operator with them, so they could talk to each other and pass messages on, which worked well. They later, I think they've implicated now that they actually have made the radios able to at least overlap and have a couple of channels that talk to each other. But it was a problem. And it was one of those things that until it happened, they didn't realize how big a problem it was, because they'd always thought that by having the frequencies separate, it meant that they didn't have interference with each other. But it was just a case of they hadn't thought it through and thought, well, maybe they should not interfere with each other, but certainly they should be able to talk to each other. And that's happening. But, you know, I've been involved in marshalling at running events and things, people running 24-hour races, and you're at a checkpoint, and somebody comes in and they fall over because they were exhausted. So how do you get help for them when they're in the middle of a field, in the middle of a 24-hour endurance thing? Well, you radio for help, because in those days the mobile phones weren't that good, and anyway, you didn't with the radios, you didn't need to be able to know who you were talking to. You just called for help, and the people answered. Whereas with phones, you've got to dial somebody. Yeah, it's one of those things. Anyway, that was one of the things there. So I'm just saying, my experience is wide. I also used to ride motorbikes. A friend and I used to repair bikes for fun, um, because we found that we couldn't rely on, when you actually had the situation that you wanted your bike fixed, you went to the local garage and said, I want my bike, pardon me, I want my bike fixed. And they would say, well, what's wrong with it? And you'd tell them, and they'd say, okay, we'll book it in 3 days' time because we're busy. And then they would possibly fix it or not. I mean, I'm not running anybody down here, but it's just one of those things. If you had a problem where I had one where I had an XS 500 Yamaha, which was a very nice bike. It was an XS 500B. It used to have an oil leak on the head because the head and the rocker box were separate. And on the later models, on the XS 500C, they actually had a total remod, and the head was all part of the rocker box, the cam box. But on my one, they were separate and they used to leak, but that wasn't too much of a problem because you just mopped it up, you accepted it. It was a very good bike other than that. But what it did have a problem with was if it got hot, the push rods would expand and the valves wouldn't shut, so the actual engine would actually stall. So you'd go for a nice black to London, down the motorway, 90, 100 mile an hour. Shh, don't tell anybody. The speed limit was 70. Anyway, you're going down into London, and you get into some of the London traffic, and of course you've been running the engine fast. You get into the traffic and you now slow down, and the engine would stall. And because you're now in hot traffic, you can't give it a chance to cool down. So you had to make sure that when you set the tappets on that, it was, I think it was whatever the measurement was, it was something like between 8 and 10 thou. You had to set it to 10 thou, not 8 thou, because if you set it to 8 thou, there wasn't enough expansion room. If you set it to 9 thou, it worked okay, but it's still a bit of a problem. If you put it to 10 thou, it was still within spec, but when it heated up, there was enough room for it to heat up. I bought some very expensive exhausts for that bike, put them on, took my bike to the local dealer and said, it needs its service, and blah, blah, blah. And when I picked it up, they said, yeah, bearing in mind, I've been running it for about a week or so with these pipes on. And they said, yeah, it's great. We've done this, done that. It works lovely. And we've done the tappets. And I thought, oh, God, they've done the tappets. So, because I needed it to be serviced by the dealer because it was under guarantee. So they did the tappets, and I went off down the road, and literally I think it was about 6 miles, and I went back and said, you've got a problem here. The bike wouldn't actually tick over even in the normal thing, and the pipes they'd gone blued and brown, so they were overheated, and it was so frustrating, really frustrating, because by doing that, if they'd just left them as they were, it would have been fine. So I then had to argue with them, and they said, "No, we set them right." I said, "No, you've got to set them to be on the far side of it, not the tight side. You've got to be on the loose side because it just won't work." And they wouldn't believe me, and then I had to go take the bike down the road, come back, and the guy and they said, "Look," and the bike's going blah, 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 and stopped. And he said, "Well, oh," and I said, "Yeah, well, if you'd listened to me, that would have been fine." But so anyway, kind of long story short, they did set it right in the end, and at that point, I decided I'm not going to take my bike to get it serviced anymore by anybody. So I bought the manual, cost a lot of money, bearing in mind I wasn't rich. Bought the manual and I bought a couple of test equipments, bought vacuum gauges, and what's it say there? Why are you gay? What do you mean gay? I'm happy. Oh, right, okay. Yeah, my wife's upstairs. I'm sure she'd like to know. Right, thank you very much. I'm glad you appreciate it. He's a great guy. Yeah, thank you. Softy3104. Having a problem reading this because my glasses are. Yeah, Sophie. Yeah, and Bertie Nicholas. Thank you. Yeah. Anyway, so what I was saying was I had to. Me and my mate, we bought the test equipment and we started fixing our own bikes. And then people said, "Oh, your bikes go ever so well. Why don't you? Did you have a look at mine?" One bike, which was exactly the same as mine, XS500B, we got it. The bloke said, "I've had it for a year, and it won't do this, it won't do that, it won't go up hills, and it's really rough and everything. Is there anything you do with it?" So we did. We charged him not a lot of money for it because it took time. And next time we saw him, said, "How are you getting on with your bike?" He said, "Oh, great." He says, went up this hill, 100 mile an hour. It was great, really good. So where is it now? Then he said, "I wrote it off 3 days later." Oh dear. What does it say? That says on your profile. Have I got a typo on my profile? It says on your profile. Yeah, don't know what that means. If you'd like to expand on that, Sophie, that'd be good. Bertie McNichols, hello, new viewers. Yes, hello, new viewers. I will say that. Hello, new viewers. How many we got now? Oh, we got a few. Yeah, got a couple of likes and things. Yeah, I was saying we got memberships now and super thanks and whatever if you want to do anything like that. It's not compulsory. Just saying it's there. Yeah, I'm trying to be an upcoming creator. I've got loads of stuff on there, and it's really just a case of getting the foot in the door. It's getting late where I am at the moment, so I'm going to have to wind it up. But plenty more stories if anybody wants to do that. I'm going to come on normally around about 8 or 9 o'clock GMT most days. Can't guarantee it, and I will start doing some little. I'm going to be on sort of promos, so that would be good. And if there's anything anybody wants, anything specifically, please put comments either in this video or in any of the other video or on the community thing. And it'd be good. Bertie McNicholas, thanks. I've had a nice time talking to you, and I'd like to interact with you guys on a proper basis. And no, I'm not gay, because if you want to ask something or know something, and if I can tell you, I will. And if I can't, I'll point you in the right direction. Anyway, that's it. I shall wind it up there. Thank you, everybody who has been in. Thank you, everybody who's going to watch this on the replay. I do appreciate that you've come along and spend your time with me. And let's try and make it good, shall we? Thanks a lot. And I'll say good night. God bless. And may all your stay safe, basically. I'll push the button now, so goodbye.